I left my parents' house earlier than most teenagers did. At 17, I was ready to live alone, and though it was hard at the beginning, I valued my privacy more and continued searching for a greener pasture until I clocked 24 and got a good job where I could afford to live in a sane neighborhood. Coupled with the tough times I went through, I had also lived in the most sinister areas in town and inhabited spaces with gangsters, rapists, and murderers to pass the night. So it was imminent that I was always on alert to the attributes of vile neighbors. A few months into my stay in this modern and new apartment, a new neighbor got the flat next door, which the agent said had been empty for months. During my inspection of the flat, I preferred the flat that had just been purchased, but the master bedroom had tall trees by the window that casted spooky shadows in the night. It was a red flag for me, as I settled for the apartment I was now staying in. "Hello?" I heard a knock on my door on a weekend that I'd planned to rest throughout, but that wasn't all. I wasn't expecting anyone, and I had no friends in the neighborhood, so I suspiciously checked the keyhole and saw a man grinning widely in home clothes. His eyes were fixed on the keyhole like he expected me to check, which irritated me. "It's your new neighbor." He identified himself and further disgusted me. "Oh, wow." I faked a smile and turned the doorknob for him to come in. His shoulders were broad, and his blue eye pierced into my body with his sexy beard that seemed to beckon on my whole existence. I deduced that the view I saw from the keyhole was what gave birth to the anger within me, but immediately he stepped in, and my anger subsided, and his cologne chilled my nostrils. "You're welcome. I'm new here, and I need friends, so I thought I'd come on over to bond with you," he chuckled as he walked to the dining table, leaving me behind to follow his steps. "I moved in on Wednesday, but realized you were never home. I guess you'd be around today, and ta-da!" He opened his alluring hands widely like he wanted to hug me, but I could tell he was motioning a surprise gesture. "Yeah, I work around the clock in a law firm, so I only get less busy on weekends, hence my compulsory absence," I chided. "What's your name?" I asked quickly before he did. "Nevada. Nevada Wedlock," he stated. "I'm Phoebe," I riposted to hook the conversation on the cliff of communication. "Nice name, and I guess we're acquaintances now," he chuckled. He was feeling too familiar with the house and suspicious, but I had a double standard on this opinion, and viewers like it. He was creating some sort of bond with being his familiar. "So do you live alone?" "Yeah, single and maybe not searching," I laughed. And he did too, but I could see a ring on his ring finger, which symbolized that he was either married or engaged. "Maybe?" he emphasized. "Yes, I'm not in a rush for something serious, but if it comes by, I'm not afraid," I answered loudly so I didn't have to say it twice. "That's a smart decision there," he laughed. "We're in the same shoe," he said, and I sincerely saw him cover his ring finger immediately. "Oh, really? You aren't married?" I asked. "Just like you," he teased, and I laughed to ease the tension in the room. We continued our conversation around marriage and love until I couldn't control the sleep in my eyes and asked to see him on Sunday after church. He walked out and helped himself open the door without waiting for my assistance. That was where I'd begun to realize the reality of his familiarity with the house. I dawdled to my room to sleep that afternoon until evening, when I woke to the thud of someone on the roof. I tried to go back to sleep but couldn't, and decided to stroll around the neighborhood to the park nearby. I walked in with my sunshades on and scanned the entirety of the park till I found a spot to sit and clear my head. After a while, I got disgusted and was about to leave when I saw Nevada walk into the park with a tan-skinned lady in white clothes and brown hair. I was at the far west of the park, and my shades were certain to keep me disguised, so I watched how they joked around with keen interest in each other and summed up my whole research with the fact that he was lying about not being engaged or married. I found it funny, and left the park without delay before he saw me. I was about to sleep later that night when I received a call from an unknown number, and as expected, it was Nevada. "Hello, neighbor," he said cheerfully. But even though I found him attractive, I didn't find it comfortable receiving a call from him in the middle of the night, especially when he just lied about his relationship status. Nevada? I answered. What are you doing? He asked. Sleeping, I riposted angrily. True, he answered quickly, laughed, and paused. What do you mean by true? I looked at the window to check if I was being spied on, but no one was there. Nothing. I mean, you should be asleep. He laughed and ended the call abruptly. It was enough to think about, but my eyelids had become so heavy to carry, so I didn't ponder about it and slept off. The next day was brief and ended with a knock on my door at around 7. It was Nevada. Hope I'm not too late or early, he said, as I opened the door, catching a glimpse of an injury near his left eye. He didn't wait for an answer as he paced to the living room and threw himself on the couch. Too froward, I whispered, as I joined him in my living room where he looked relaxed and calm. I'm sorry I disturbed you last night, he said eventually. I didn't think about it. I tried to let bygones be bygones when he interrupted. No wonder you slept well, he concluded my statement. But before I could object to the certainty of his statement, the news on TV caught my attention. A girl was found dead at Daenerys East Coast Park yesterday night. She's been identified as Jessie Parker. I turned to see the TV, and what my brain interpreted as the person on the screen was the girl that I'd seen with Nevada at the park. I turned to him and saw a knife in his hands and his trousers unzipped. I quickly tried to run, but he was swift enough to catch me and wrap me in his arms as he overpowered me and tried to undress me. Immediately, he let me free a little to take off my pants. I jabbed his groin and bolted out of his arms and watched him plunge to the floor in pain. His reality was before me as I heard him whisper, "No one will save you. I've locked the doors from the outside." How'd you know where my key is? I tried to open the door, but it was truly locked from outside. I have a camera in every room in your... He laughed. Our house! Angrily, I closed the gap between us as he rose to his feet. I jabbed his stomach with my knee, knocking him unconscious on my living room rug. It was far from over, but I made sure he wasn't my problem anymore when I called the police on him. I thought I'd seen it all. When you've lived a military life as a young man, joined the police force after leaving the military, and then settled on heading towards retirement at a private hire security firm in your later years, you're gonna come across some shit. I've seen entire small villages wiped clean of life, like everyone just upped and left in the middle of the night without a trace, with fires still burning and food still cool on the plate with no hint of a struggle either. I've seen a man take a taser to the chest and several live rounds after that and still remain on his feet, directing a primal scream of pure anger towards us. The only thing that managed to take him down in the end was brute force, and that took a handful of officers and myself. But none of that compared to being a security guard. It's like when the lights go out in the office blocks, warehouses, or stadiums you watch over, they become an entirely different world with each corner and every shadow threatening to house a hidden danger, ready to pounce at any moment. I should have listened to my gut instinct. I wouldn't class myself as a jumpy person by nature, but the all too familiar feeling of a nervous sweat and short, sharp breaths as I do my rounds is becoming a nightly occurrence. I'd recently taken on a newly built apartment block to guard for the next 6 months, while the contractors built final stages of construction. The agency sent me the address and the door access code, and that was it. No face-to-face or phone call, but it often happened that way. I couldn't pass it up, though. Those kinds of jobs typically paid quite well due to the hours. But this one was almost triple the payout, and it paid weekly. When I turned up on the first afternoon, I used the door access code and followed the signs to the security office, hoping to catch the day watch before they went home for the night. This was routine for most security jobs, 2 shifts passing, day shift and night shift. I always tried to catch them at least on the first day to get the lay of the land. Sometimes they would tell me about potential trespassers to keep an eye out for, or an over-amorous couple, but mainly it was bored kids using the security guard as a momentary escape from boredom. In truth, sometimes it was nice to have something going on just to pass the time. The security office was empty when I arrived. 5 monitors on the table gave me a glimpse into the layout of the apartment block. Camera 1 showed the entrance, 2 and 3 were floor 1 and 2's corridors, 4 showed ground-level car park, and 5 was reception and the door into the security office. Obviously, none of the apartments had cameras inside, but from the monitors I could estimate roughly 6 apartments on both floors 1 and 2. Ground level was kept for parking and reception. On the table was a note, its details as cryptic as this empty building that I'd found myself in. "Hey man, my name's Joel. I work day shift. I leave dead on 5 p.m. every day and not a minute later. I don't want to spend a second longer here than I have to. Sorry you were the unlucky one to get the night shift, mate. No point leaving you a long list of tasks. Night shift guards tend to last only a few days around here. I told them, but nobody listens to Joel. Anyway, stick by these rules and you never know, I might actually see you on Friday." Below the happy but weirdly warning note were a list of rules. Number 1, only leave the office if absolutely necessary during your shift. This place, I swear, will do all it can to get you to stray. Number 2, you will hear knocking on the office door. It happens in the day, so I can guarantee you'll get it too. Ignore it. Number 3, don't always trust the monitors. Number 4, if I call you, that isn't me. For no reason whatsoever will I call you. Number 5, just make it through till Friday, man. Did you see how much they offer for night shift on a weekly basis here? And with that, I began my first shift. For the first 2 nights, not much happened. I swear I could hear what sounded like children running up and down the corridors, but nothing was on the monitors. The door did knock on several occasions, but I just turned my back to it while staring at the monitor, convincing myself my head was just playing tricks on me. That brings us up to 2 nights ago. It was as if the apartment was trying to trick me into leaving the safety of my dimly lit security office. Apartment doors were randomly being left open. Screams and laughter could be heard throughout the building, and the sound of footsteps had become a constant thing from beginning of shift till the end. I'd almost given up. Most unnerving of all, when I wasn't directly looking at the monitors, I swear that someone was moving from shadow to shadow in the reception, getting closer and closer to the security office door. That leads up to last night. The apartment block was deathly quiet. You know, the kind of silence that almost hurts your ears. It's just so loud, if that makes sense. The kind of silence in which you can almost hear your own heartbeat. The phone rang at 3 a.m. The man on the other end of the line told me his name was Joel. I told him I didn't believe him. I could almost hear his mouth carving into a smile, as if a child being caught out of a white lie. He asked me to let him in. I couldn't do that. I shouldn't have done that. But his voice, he was so... He told me he was coming. I considered going with him. That was crazy, right? Looking at the monitors, every apartment's front door was open. The shadows beyond the door frames danced as if jet black fire had engulfed each room. I needed to leave. I had to leave. Then, there was a loud knock on the door. "Let me in," a quiet, calm, deep voice asked. "No!" I shouted, but my feet couldn't fight the urge to walk towards the door. I could hear laughter, malicious laughter. I could tell he wanted to harm me. What was I going to do? I needed to shake this fog clouding my judgment. Ever since I spoke to him, I needed to go to him. No. Wait it out till morning. I can do this, I kept telling myself. As I fought against my better judgment, I found myself reaching for the handle. A voice inside my head spoke. "Let him in." Movement in my peripheral vision shook me out of my almost trance-like state. On the reception camera, I could see a man with his back towards me. Once again, my hand went for the handle, but I couldn't stop it. I had my body, but it was as if he had my mind. I was an unwilling passenger. I screamed at myself inside my head to stop, to fight it, but it was no use. It was his now. And I opened the door. My blood ran cold as I saw his face. What are you?" And at that moment, my vision blurred and I fainted. The next thing I know is that I was on a hospital bed. The nurse told me that a guy named Joel brought me there. My brain was still numb from the incidents of last night. Who was that man? Or better, what was it? Was it a prank played by Joel? Or was it someone else? There were so many questions in my mind, but I didn't have the courage to seek the answers. It was best for me and for my safety to stay away from that place. Me and my wife Tammy decided to switch the scenery and opted for a place with a warmer climate. In no time, we found an apartment in an old building complex. It was small, but comfy, exactly what we needed. One night as I was taking out the trash, I saw someone. The person was sitting on the stairs doing something with his hands. He had his back toward me, so I couldn't see exactly what he was up to. I walked past him, but something stopped me in my tracks. Before I could take the last step off the stairs, I fell face first on the ground. The garbage bag ripped, and the contents flew everywhere around me. I turned around and saw that the person's hand was wrapped around my ankle. "Let go, are you crazy?" I said while violently shaking my leg. The person started laughing. I finally freed myself and got up from the ground. I was so pissed that I wanted to punch him in the face. But at that moment, someone yelled at me. I looked up and saw a small, frail woman that seemed to be in her 70s.
"What are you doing? I'm calling the police. Leave him alone,"
she yelled. I had no idea what was going on. I was the victim in that situation. The woman continued, saying that it was her son and he wasn't well. I understood what she was saying, and upon looking at him, I could see that he wasn't all there. I picked up the litter, and after throwing it in the trash can, I went back inside. The strange thing was, when all this yelling happened, several people walked by the entrance of the building, and they were looking at me like I was crazy. A couple even said that, "God, I hope I won't start talking to myself one day." I didn't know why they would say that. I told my wife what happened. She laughed, thinking it was funny. "I wish I could have seen it," she said, sporting that cute smile that always makes my knees weak. I got over it quickly. During the night, there was a commotion in the hallway. I couldn't get any sleep, tossing and turning, while my wife had no such problem. So I got up and went to check the situation. It seemed that someone was arguing, and a loud banging noise was accompanying the screaming. I walked down the hallway until I reached the stairs. There, one floor down, the guy who grabbed my leg was banging his head on the wall. All the while, the small woman who was his mom was next to him, telling him to stop. He saw me looking at them, and he stopped. But without any warning, he ran towards me. In no time, I was on the ground as a result of him tackling me. "What the hell are you doing? Get off!" I said while trying to push him away. He was a big guy, and it seemed to be more difficult than I thought. I fought him off eventually, punching him in the face. His mom started screaming, saying that I'm killing her son. His nose began to bleed, and he ran into his apartment. Another neighbor was walking up the stairs. He saw that I was breathing heavily. "Hey, are you okay?" he asked. I responded, saying that the crazy neighbor is a real danger to all of us. He looked at me like I was crazy. It seemed that he didn't want to continue the conversation, and all he said was, "Okay," and went on his way. The next morning, I was going to work. I opened my door just to see that there was blood on the other side of it. I was stunned. I knew who did it, so I went to their apartment. The mom opened. "Ma'am, I'm trying so hard to understand the situation, but taking into consideration what happened yesterday and the fact that I have blood smeared on my door, I think I'm going to call the police."
"My son's sleeping. Don't you blame what happened on him. I'm sure you did it because you have something against people who are different."
And she slammed the door in my face. That night, as I came home, my wife told me that something strange happened. As she was reading a book, someone knocked on the door. She opened it, and as she did, there was something hanging by a string right in front of her face. It was a small skull. She said it looked like a bird's skull. It freaked her out and she called the police, but they couldn't do anything. They told her to keep an eye out for any suspicious activity and call them again. Upon hearing this, I went straight to their door. I just knew that the crazy neighbor had something to do with it. I knocked and I knocked, but no one answered. Upon hearing me knock, a woman opened another door from the opposite apartment. "You're wasting your time, no one's there," she said. She looked at me strangely and went back into her apartment. That evening, we went to bed. My wife seemed to be calm about what happened, but I was still enraged. Eventually, I fell asleep. It was around 3 a.m. when something woke me up. A strange noise was coming from the kitchen. I went over to see what was going on. I turned on the light, and something hit me dead in the face. It was a pigeon flying around my kitchen frantically. The poor bird must have been scared. "What are you doing here, little guy?" I said while trying to get him out. But as I was trying to do that, I remembered the small bird skull. I put 2 and 2 together, and the image of that crazy guy popped into my head. "He's in the house!" I shouted while leaving the kitchen to go and check on my wife. As I entered the bedroom, I found her safe, in the bed. I was so relieved. But I heard the bedroom door close right behind me. I turned around, and there he was, my neighbor. He was looking right at me and smiling, holding something in his hand. "What do you have there, asshole?" I asked, not trying to start a confrontation. He lifted his right hand, and I saw that he was holding a dead pigeon by its neck. "Okay, it's time to get out of here," I said. But he didn't move. He just stayed there, looking at me. I walked forward, grabbing his hand, guiding him outside the bedroom. He seemed cooperative. He saw a cookie on the kitchen counter and stopped while staring at it. "Oh, you want the cookie? You can have it," I said. He took it and left. I was scared out of my mind. Good thing nothing happened. I didn't even tell my wife, not until some time had passed. But another strange thing happened the next morning. As I was going to work, I went past their apartment. I saw that the door was open and took a look inside. The place was empty, and there were construction guys working. "Excuse me, did they move?" I asked. He looked at me as if I was speaking another language. "Did who move?" "You know, the guy and his mom." "Sir, this apartment has been vacant since 2005. Someone just bought it," he told me. I was speechless. "Did you see them?" I heard a voice coming from behind me. I turned around and saw the woman from the opposite apartment. "I too see them sometimes." "What do you mean?" "Marge and little Nikki. They died years ago. Well, he killed her and then killed himself. I still see them sometimes around the building." "Guess you do too. But don't worry, he's a good boy." "Well, most of the time," the woman said, and slowly closed the door.
For 2 years, staying up at night and making sure everyone was safe had perks of its own. The nights I had to stay up acting as the protector of the girls and savior for them when they needed it. I worked as a security guard in a girls' boarding school. It was always my dream to be a guard of a very high rank, but it would start somewhere, wouldn't it? Even if it meant that I had to listen to high-pitched screams of girls all night long and listen to them talk about guys they met in other schools and which of them they were in love with. It was always an interesting moment with them, coupled with the fact that I had lived in the school as well. Somehow, because of the girls, I loved my job and I always hoped I would have a girl of my own someday. The nights came and went as usual, no events or things to look at all night, but this very night, I should have known that it was all going to be different from the usual way I knew. I ate my food in a happy mood and I watched as the girls played outside with one another. I was 25 and I was looking to settle down with a nice lady in the next 3 years. I needed to have money first and I had to start applying for better jobs. It would hurt me to leave the girls, but it was for a good reason. Not only because they kept me company was the reason I wanted them to stay. I got scared as well when the doors to the main building got locked every night and I'm the only one left to look after the building till it was morning again. Each sound was a suspicion. Even the sole of shoes became suspect when they made unusual noise. It really got scary being all alone, and with a mindset that anything could happen, it was hard enough that it was not easy to concentrate. I sat on the chair quietly, expecting the night to be by really fast and quiet, as it should, but as if my mind could be read, I heard footsteps in the bushes close to the school. Though the school had buildings around it, they were sparsely distributed, leaving land for the bushes to grow and develop, becoming almost a forest. I heard the noise again. It was closer this time, and it became faster. It felt like they were running, but I couldn't exactly tell since I couldn't see them. "Hello?" I said loud enough. "Anyone there?" The footsteps stopped for a second. If I was going to think like a thief, which I guess the intruder was, I was probably going to stop walking because I wasn't expecting anyone to be there, or because I wasn't expecting to be heard like that. I heard footsteps again, this time really close, and then I heard the front door to the main building open. A very huge shadow appeared under the light, and the footsteps got louder and louder. Then I heard a loud knock on the gate of the school. I looked back and the shadow at the door was no longer there, but the door remained open. The knock on the gate grew louder and louder before coming to a sudden halt. "Walter," the voice said loudly. The voice sounded really familiar, but I couldn't exactly place where I had heard it before. The knocks became insistent, and I knew it had to be someone from inside, but I had to be sure. The lives of these girls were in my hands. The unknown person called out my name really loud, too. "Walter!" The voice was angry. The knock on the gate came again, but louder and more impatient this time. "Walter! Who are you talking to? Open the gate!" I was still walking carefully, keeping my steps as muffled as possible. I knew that there was an intruder in the school, but I had to deal with whoever was at the gate first. A loud noise hit the gate violently, which caused me to ignore all the silence I was trying to keep and open the door almost immediately. A body fell right into the door, and I was shocked at how helpless the body lay. Was this the same person that was yelling and hitting the gate violently? I tried to get the person up, but she reeked of alcohol, and on closer look, she looked like Miss Coley? I asked myself, confused. The principal of the school? Drunk and acting stupid? I pulled her towards the main entrance, and when I opened the door, I heard legs run back to the room, and that's when I heard it. "Crap!" I left Miss Coley and ran towards the intruder. "Stay where you are," I yelled, my heart in my throat. I never had to deal with a threat before. I could only hope that the girls would be safe. I heard footsteps on the steps and cursed under my breath. The person was moving in the direction of the rooms. I got to the first floor in time to see a man trying to enter the first room. I brought up my gun, thinking about how it was a good thing that we always told the girls to lock their doors. "Stay right there. Do not come any closer." "No," the man yelled. I got furious and shot at him. The bullet hit him in the leg and he yelled as he fell to the floor. Just then, the door he was in front of opened and Jessie poked her head out in concern. "Jessie, no!" I yelled and lunged for her. The man grabbed her and she screamed. This time I was sure everyone woke up. The man held her in front of him. Stay back, or I'll hurt her." I put my hands up. He asked me to drop my gun and I lowered it to the ground, keeping my eyes on him. I tried to calm Jessie down and I told her that it would be all right. The man asked me to walk downstairs and he would be right behind me. I did as he asked, and my mind raving for a way out. He was limping due to the bullet in his leg, so I knew he was weak. I only needed an opening. We got downstairs and Miss Coley was standing in the shadows. With wide eyes, she took in the situation and nodded to me. When the man got nearer, she barreled into him. A shot rang out and I fell to the ground immediately. Apparently, the man had taken my gun. I ran towards them and restrained him. I sighed in relief when I saw that no one was hit. I called the cops and they arrested him. Jessie had to be calmed down and one of the teachers helped her through the panic she felt. I went back to my post and I didn't sleep a wink that night. It was later revealed that the man wanted to kidnap one of the girls for a personal reason. People like this made me sick, and that was the reason why I was doing this job. No one would hurt these girls, not under my watch.